Hello, YNABers. My name is Jesse Meekum, and this podcast does not have a number because it is a special interview that I did with one of my favorite authors. His name is Mike Michalowicz, and he wrote a book that, as a business owner, absolutely, positively changed my life. It is called Profit First. However, Mike is a prolific author, and he thinks deeply when it comes to businesses. So I know, while we don't talk about business a lot on this podcast, I thought we might be able to make an exception because I know a lot of you are business owners, whether you've got something that is kind of your main gig or a side hustle. What he talks about in his new book will absolutely apply. It is called Clockwork. It is excellent. He has a fun way of writing where I don't get bored reading it, and he interweaves a lot of stories and has a great way of kind of breaking down principles into very actionable steps. So this rather exceptionally long podcast for YNAB is now available, and it's where I interview Mike, and we chat first about Profit First and kind of how we got to know each other and how it changed my life as a business owner, and then we dive into his new book, which is Clockwork, which actually comes out today. Okay, Mike Michalowicz, thanks for coming on the YNAB podcast.
Jesse, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So our audience has maybe heard me mention Profit First on the podcast because, and I'm not, like brown nosing here, but it radically changed this friction I felt with my business around owner distributions. So I want you to give I want everyone to know about Profit First, and I want you to give a pitch for it, and then we'll dive into your new book, which I think business owners, if they can't find profit, or if they just feel like they're running themselves ragged, Clockwork, your new book that we'll hit, is great. But let's give a quick kind of backstory on Profit First and how we got to know each other, and then we'll dive into the new stuff.
It's super humbling to hear you say that, and that's not the first time you shared that. We got together in New York City for a cup of coffee or dinner drinks actually, and you were kind enough to share the impact it had on me and on you, and it blew me away. I'm like, the founder of YNAB, this is serving him. So thank you for saying that. I'm still taken aback in such a pleasant way every time you share that.
I had a break. Well, I had my COO. YNAB is doing well, and we had a rocky when we switched our business plan. We had a rocky time where I knew, this will be a rough ride. Hopefully we make it, and we've made it. So, and then this question of reinvesting. That like entrepreneurs they're supposed to fill this this character attribute of like high flying, high risk, swashbuckling, roll the dice. And I always felt that, but I didn't actually like doing that. So for years I would pour money back in. It was just like, I got some chips. I'll just push the chips back on the table times, whatever it was. And then I would go home to my wife, Julie, and be like, hey, YNAB's killing it. And she's just like, oh, news to me, because our life wouldn't change at all. Any profit we made, quote unquote profit, I would just leave in the business saying, business will need it. And the business always did need it, always had to consume it in some way or another. And so finally, reading your book, and I encourage everyone to read this. If you're a business owner, it applies to personal finance, but it's just perfectly on point with business owners. And the idea of just saying, I'm going to take a distribution and then let the business have the rest. That was simple as it sounds.
Yeah, well, what I found out is so many of us have been trained to push the money back into the business, and there's vernacular around that: plow back, push back, reinvest.
Yeah.
Here's the hardcore reality. It is not profit. Then we call it profit for a period of time, and then we say, but I'm going to put it back in the business. That is not profit. That is an expense. We played a shell game. We said it was profit. We felt good about it, but it's an expense.
Yeah.
A sustainable business must be profitable. And that then dictates that the owner must take that as a distribution, compensation, a year-end bonus, a quarterly bonus. It is your choice then to do what you want with it. I call it a celebratory account. And we can define celebration as going on an amazing vacation. You, your wife, and your kids, you went to New York. I actually thought you moved there. You were there for such a long period.
We were there for a while, yeah.
Yeah. But it could be investing in your future. It could be savings. It could be starting a new business if you're so fortunate, or not for profit. But the key is that money comes out, and the exclusive use is for the benefit of the owner. The hidden benefit or gem here is when the business doesn't have that dependency on that profit, which is not profit, then it's a reinvestment. It has to find a way to survive on its own legs. And that's what a business needs to do. Not this infusion of this adrenaline shot every quarter or however you reinvest that profit, but it now must live off of its own legs. And that is a truly successful business.
Yeah. And on a side benefit to this, I have a minority partner that, our CTO, Taylor, and he would get a distribution when I would randomly decide to take money out. He always talks about the dog distribution because there were like several years ago, I'm like, I'm going to get a Belgian Malinois puppy and train it and do like Schutzhund stuff with it. And it'll be awesome, and it was awesome. And so the dog cost, I think, $2,000. These are expensive dogs, although for Manhattan standards, I learned that wasn't that expensive, when I was over there. But for us over here, it was expensive. And then because I'm a partial owner, I always have to distribute proportionally to Taylor. So he would just randomly be like, oh, wait, what happened? Oh, you bought a dog? Oh, cool. I got a little money. It was just so weird. Or I would say, oh, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to take out a distribution. And he'd be like, oh, good. I hope you take out more. What else do you think you should buy that, it was just this weird thing where he couldn't count on it. And now we have this schedule. And per your book, I kind of have slowly been upping the percentage of gross to not get too much in the weeds, but percentage of gross profit on our books. I just take a percentage of that. And I've actually applied a function to that and said, okay, and then this bit is carved out for the rest of the employees. So it's allowed me to kind of treat the employees as, quasi owners to a degree.
Exactly.
And they benefit. So everyone's like, oh, if YNAB does well and really can take money out, then it goes, distributes to everybody. And we're doing fantastic, and it's just the predictability has been, I didn't think it would be such a boon to the partnership, already a healthy partnership, but Taylor is like, man, tell Mike thanks because it's just made his life Taylor, easier,
But, for guys like me and you, Jesse, what's interesting is, you developed YNAB, I developed Profit First. I feel it's the ultimate accountability. Like I live by Profit First, and I know that if I ever flounder from it, I become a charlatan. So it's a self-enforcing mechanism that we have a community that uses it, but also our own employees. My colleagues here, they share in our quarterly profit distributions. They're very profit first oriented, and the decisions they make here are fascinating. We're 10 employees, we're tiny, but one of my colleagues here, she effectively does our purchasing. I said, hey, I asked you to get such and such, and you're proceeding with it, but you haven't bought it yet. She's like, oh, I believe there's a new coupon being released tomorrow, so we're just waiting a day to save another 15%. Because the bottom line is affecting her. The more profitable you are, the more she shares in it. So I just see it as a great accountability mechanism, but also the engagement from my colleagues now is there, and they're bringing this into their own home lives. Some of them have their own side hustle, their own businesses, and they've employed it there. So it really starts to kind of snowball out, which is a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, that is. And it actually kind of leads into your other book, at least that one line where you're kind of talking about employees acting like owners, and in that way, if they're sharing in those real profits, then they do start behaving like owners, like, oh, we could save money here, or we could bump up our conversion rate or sales here. That's a big deal, really big deal. Very cool. So on the, anyway, so thanks for Profit First. And I know we have big overlap. A lot of YNABers are, that use YNAB for their business are fully like whole hog into Profit First as basically a cash flow model for just how things should flow at a fairly high level, really. You do kind of show how you can get more granular as needed, but for the most part, you're just kind of saying, take money off, essentially almost off the top. Yep. And then let everything fall where it may. And I've been doing that for almost a year now. And lo and behold, things are just fine, and I've distributed.
Exactly what it is. And when we tell people to get granular, we say, do YNAB. So it is.
Yeah,
it is
exactly. Exactly. And one final thing that I just found really, I think long-term could be a big lasting benefit is I was chatting with my COO, and this was before I had found it, but I was learning about it. And he said, "Oh, Jesse, if you never take a distribution, if you never extract the value that's been built with YNAB, then you are ultimately saying you will sell it, because at some point you have to get the value out. It's too risky not to, you know?"
Yes.
And so now that I'm able to see, oh, I can derive my value slowly over time and keep YNAB mine, that it's been such a weight off my shoulders. Because you know how it is. Everyone, as soon as you say you own a business, they'll say, "Well, when are you selling it?" You're like,
what's
"Well,
your exit plan?"
well, you know, it's like, it's just it's bizarre, you know. So now I can say, "Oh, I'm not," and it's brilliant, you know. It works out just fine. So anyway, so that's the Profit First bit. I encourage everyone to check it out. Mike has several books. I haven't read your previous books, Mike. One of the Pumpkin Plan is one that I felt like, I think I've cracked the nut there. But the Clockwork one, this new one, as I was reading, I thought, okay, I've got some work to do, you know? So first, kind of tell me, I mean, you're a writer. You write really well.
Yep.
It's fun. I actually like your audiobook. When I read I like hearing your voice, and you ad lib. So you get little extra,
I do.
You get little extra things in there. But tell me why you wrote this one. Like, what was the cause?
The kind of the aha was, well, a few things. First of all, I got emails from readers of Profit First that had achieved their vision for profit, and then they said, "But I have another problem. You know, what is it? We're still working my butt off."
Yeah.
I've now concluded that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which applies to our human life, which says basically we have a base level of need, which is our survivability, you know, food, water, oxygen. If you don't have that, all of our attention goes to acquiring that. But once you have that level, then it's need for shelter, and then belonging in a community, and love, and the highest level of self-actualization. Well, I looked at this model for personal needs and said, oh my gosh, this applies in a different flavor, but to entrepreneurial needs. I believe every business, foundationally, its oxygen is sales. If I don't have any inbound sales into my business, a recurring source of revenue, I am deprived of oxygen. I am gasping for air. So I need sales. But once you have some degree of sales, then the next level is the nutrition for the business, which is profitability. If the business doesn't have profit, it will starve to death. You can breathe in as much air as you want. You can try to sell more and more and more. But if you don't have the nutrition of profit, you will starve to death. You will die. Yeah. Sadly, most businesses that are starving for profit actually focus on sales. Yeah. Once the business has consistent sales, or sustainable sales, I should say, and a degree of predictable profit, then the next level becomes the management of time. A business owner wants to utilize their time in a way that they can do what they want when they want. And actually, that's why I just have the subtitle for the book, Design Your Business to Run Itself. Yeah. The goal of a business, once there is predictable profitability, is to be able to do what we want when we want in both our life and our business. I found that most business owners, and this is true for myself too, I don't want to do everything in my business. I don't want to do a lot of the administrative stuff. Yeah. And I've gotten to the point where there's predictable profit now. I can do the work I want to do in the business, or I want the freedom to say, I'm done doing the work, but I want the business to continue on without me. Mm-hmm. This is the third level, giving us the freedom to do what we want when we want. But you have to have a business that runs itself for that, to pull that off. Yeah, absolutely. So when you kind of, let's assume listeners, they're saying, I can close a deal, you know? As a matter of fact, I was chatting with a friend yesterday, and he just said, I don't know, like, I'm so busy, you know, clients call, and he has this kind of crass way of saying, he calls it the FU price, but his hope is basically for them to say, that's too high, I can't hire you, because he's so slammed, you know? And so he's cracked the sales code, as it were. And he's very profitable, but he's just going from one fire to the next, you know, and doing everything, working, you know, sun up to sundown, and there's kind of no end in sight for him. So when you had a phrase in there that I really liked, where you said doing is getting you nowhere. Just kind of expound on that way. That's a little bit counterintuitive. Yeah. So I feel there's four phases that the entrepreneur, the business owner goes through in running a business. Phase one is doing, where we do all the work. We call ourselves the CEO and the chief bottle washer. And it is
Yeah.
necessary. When you start a business, you have to do everything. The next level is actually deciding. And what this is we make our first hires, we assign them work, we call it delegation, but we're really deciding. And what I mean is, if you hire me, you may assign me a task like, Mike, create these invoices for these customers. What you've done effectively is task rabbited me. The problem occurs when I come back to you and say, hey, Jesse, I'm not sure. Should I sort these customers by first name or last name? And then you say, oh, we do it here by last name. You've made a decision for me. You've just assigned me a more direction. And then I come back to you a minute later and say, do you want me to bill in increments of 1 hour or 15 minutes? And you decide again.
Yeah.
What happens here is I'm making the motions, but I'm not making the decisions. There is a Hindu goddess actually that I think describes it so well. Her name is Kali. Coincidentally, or maybe ironically, she is the goddess of both death and time. So I call it death by time. And what it is you are deciding, and I become this Hindu goddess, which is one head with 8 arms. You've probably seen pictures of her before.
Yeah, definitely.
It's one brain that still controls the entire organization. It limits our growth, and it actually takes us away from doing the work because we're deciding for everyone else.
Yeah.
The next level up is delegating. Delegating is where you assign the outcome. You tell me, Mike, we need to make sure that we're collecting the revenue from our clients. Take care of that. That's an outcome-based direction. And when I come back to you with questions saying, like, should I sort by last name or first name? The response is, I hired you because of your great mind. You figure it out, Mike. You decide. So it's pushing decisions back on me. The highest level then is designing. And designing is where we have the vision for the business, where we want to take it, that X on the map, and are making strategic decisions, coordinating our resources, orchestrating our efficiency as a business unit to get where we want to go. And I think most entrepreneurs are in the doing, even if it's sophisticated doing, like the person you described, who's a high level closer. She's the rainmaker. She's still in the doing phase, and that will be capped. You can only make so much rain be generated. What I'd argue, to be a true entrepreneur, she needs to shift to designing and orchestrate other people to do that miraculous thing she does, so that she can get more and more people doing it, and therefore grow the business and ultimately extract herself from the business even needing her.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So those 4 Ds, like that, you have the doer. That's, and it's natural. It's an evolution for, well, I'll say this: any business,
Yes.
will always start around the doer. But whether you progress to that ultimate the ultimate D of designing it is a question mark, right? This isn't just, natural evolution of every business owner is to walk this path. It sounds like it's a very intentional path that you want to take.
It is, but you hit roadblocks because we become entrenched or familiar, or maybe it just becomes habit. When I started my businesses, my first companies were in the technical space, and I would set up the computers, and I got so efficient and good at it that it frustrated me. If I tried to hire someone, I said, they're idiots. They can't perform my level. No one's as good as me. And I actually built, through my ego and through my ignorance, I built this barrier for my growth. I believe I couldn't hire the right people. So I would do more, or I'd say I'd have to hire a person that I had to pay such a ridiculous fee because they have to come in with so much talent that I can never afford them. And then it prevents me from growing. Is once I had the realization that I had to up level my game, I had to move on from doing work and start really moving toward the true delegation of work, and ultimately just designing the strategy for my business. Did I ever really elevate my business? And getting past that ego and that established habit is very difficult. It's very hard.
Yeah. And what's so satisfying is when, some time passes and you realize this person that's doing the thing that I used to do is far better at it than I was.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Right, the clarity. I was like, oops, that was a mistake. I'm not that capable.
and then you feel like you found gold. You feel like you struck, and
but there's another danger here is abdication can happen, and I fell into this trap. I had that moment when oh my gosh, there are people that are better than this. I need to hire them. But then I abdicated any responsibility. I said, basically, go out and do your magic, person. And they did. But then they came back one day and said, hey, Mike, you're not paying me enough. I'm doing all this work. I need to be paid more. And if you can't pay me more, I hate to say this, but I have to leave. And that's when they had reversed the golden handcuffs on me.
Mm-hmm.
I now had to find ways to get them more money, because if they left me, out the door went all my systems, all the process, because they had all of that in their heads.
Yeah.
So the key to a designer is not just putting the right people in the right places, but to be perpetually extracting the knowledge of the company and routinizing it, make it into systems and processes so other people can come in and replicate the process. That's the key. If you don't do it, reverse golden handcuffs could occur.
Yeah, absolutely. You feel like they're irreplaceable. And
Right.
I've been stuck in that before, and sometimes you might be working with, you have a team member where you say, oh, this isn't working. I need to let this person go, and they're just irreplaceable. And you start to have, cultural, things that can happen. And, you've got a bad apple, but oh my gosh, they're irreplaceable. So, it really is it's like a way of diversifying, essentially, and kind of protecting your business, to say, to a degree, we're all replaceable,
We're all replaceable.
Yeah.
And the key here is, as people come on and they develop their own processes and systems, I mean, a business at a point will get beyond our knowledge. I think it's usually around 5 or 6 employees that I've experienced. Is I can't keep it all in my head anymore.
Yeah.
There's people doing things that I don't even know what's going on. In my own business, we only have 10 employees here. I just heard that we have this major project underway, and I had no idea. There is relief in that the business is moving forward without me. There's a fear when there's this lack of control. So one thing to set up that we've done here, and I explained in Clockwork, is as things are developed, new systems are brought about, that those people are also responsible for recording it. And when I say recording, I mean, we actually record it. If it's a process like, say it's an invoicing process, we use a screen capture tool. The person that's now managing this process records it, saves it, so that when we bring on the next person to do that work, and the person that was doing that work is now elevated to something else, that we can just transition the knowledge by watching a video.
Yeah.
We always have to capture the work we're doing.
How do you deal with people that are, you're saying, we want to capture this work, we want you to record it? You're familiar with EOS, with Gino Wickman's traction.
Gino Wickman's work.
And I love that
awesome.
as well. And he talks about stepping back from the business, so you're not just in it, but you're step back from it. How do you balance that with employees where they're super efficient, they're going sun up to sundown, they're working like crazy? How do you convince them to say, wait, take a moment, take longer than you would for this task to record it?
Yeah. So it's funny. I was thinking about that exact question when I was writing the book, and I said, what employee is in such demand that they have to be going from sun to sundown, and they have such technical knowledge that they have no other time? And I figured, at least I determined that doctors in ER situations in particular are that scenario. So I started to study ERs. I found 2 kind of polarized situations. One was a hospital in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Another one was a hospital in New York City. And this one in Cape Cod was blowing the metrics off the door. They had a wonderful reputation for excellent service, but also they had the ability to see patients within minutes of their arrival in the ER. If it was a bloody nose or a broken arm or worse, it didn't matter. They were seeing everyone quickly, and they were busy. I found another hospital that had the same degree of demand placed on it, but they were horribly inefficient. Doctors were overwhelmed. Patients were in the waiting room. There's one case study. It's a very sad case study of a woman named Esmond Green, who actually was in the waiting room for such a long period. She actually died in the waiting room from what's called thrombosis, which is basically sitting for too long, and you get blood clots in your leg that go to your brain. Horrible case study, but it does point to the 2 extremes. The one hospital in Cape Cod that was so successful realized 2 things. First of all, the doctors have to have any superfluous work removed from them. Our rainmakers, those star employees we have, often have superfluous work. Peel that work away. That's step 1. Don't have them do the administrative work. Hire an administrator. If they're kicking butt at sales and they're also tracking their time, make that hire for someone else to track their time. So avail them to do what they're best at. Step 2 is record them during the process, not teaching it. Don't say, okay, stop selling. Now come and teach us how to sell. have someone watch them in parallel. When they're on a sales call, send the learners to observe them in the process, or have a recording of the process as it happens. So they don't have to get off the track of their production, but the training is happening in parallel.
Right.
That was the two significant things I found. And I think we can all do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And is this the salesman that you're talking about? Is this kind of the queen bee role that you work around in the book, that concept?
Oh, great question. Not necessarily, but the queen bee role is a critical function. Here's what it is. I discovered, or feel that, or concluded, maybe is the best word, that every business has a critical function. I consider it the heart of the business. It needs to keep beating. If our heart stops, the entire body dies. If we get a cut on our finger, we're not dying. So the heart is a priority organ. It must be protected. And actually, in our natural biology, the caging of our skeletal system actually protects the heart. There's an encasement around the heart, this water to protect it. Our fingers don't have extra structure around it or water to protect it because it's not critical. So the heart is the most critical thing. What is the heart of the organization? I call it the QBR. It stands for Queen Bee Role. There's a reason I derived that term. I explain in the book. It's not necessary to explain, but every business has it. Here's how you find it. Determine what your brand promise is for your business. What's that one thing you're distinguishing your business on? The example I've been using a lot recently is Federal Express. FedEx is known to deliver packages on time as promised. That's their brand promise. If it absolutely, positively needs to be there overnight, we'll make it happen. That's their brand promise. Then we peel the onion back just one layer and say, what is the most important function the business is doing to make that brand promise a reality? What FedEx does is logistics. They move those packages very quickly to get to where you need to be. Quick and efficient logistics. That's their QBR, the critical role that's happening within the organization. Now they do a million other things. They have a wonderful website. They have great customer service, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the honest truth. If the customer service slacks and they don't answer the phone in a minute, they start answering the phone in 30 minutes, and this happens for the next month, that they take 30 times longer to get to the phone call. Will people complain? Sure. Will they lose some business? Maybe. Will they lose the entirety of their business? No way. No. Yeah. But now think about packages. Say it took 30 times longer to deliver a package. They still get there in a day, but now it takes 30 days to get there. Will they lose business? Yes. Yeah. Will they go out of business? Yes. That is the heart of their business. We need to determine the QBR, and every company has it. To find it, figure out what's the one big thing your business is known for. Then peel back the onion. What's the most important function, activity in our business that supports it? That's the heart of the business. Protect it. Make sure it's served. Just like the Cape Cod Hospital, protect those doctors so they can do that one critical thing and remove their distractions. Find your QBR, protect it and serve it, and your entire business gets elevated.
Yeah. That's going to make me, I'm going to have to think through that. We do pretty well thinking through kind of our uniques and, what positions us in the market and our purpose and things like that. But to get to a question of saying, well, where is our support for this queen bee role? Where is that? And how can we support it even further? Yeah. It's almost like you're saying, where do we just double down again and again? When I was reading, you allude to Bezos at some point in the book, I remember, and I read his book, a book about him, The Everything Store.
Yeah.
And it was interesting how they had this point where they would just double down on the same exact concept again, which is, the Everything Store caught it. It was, we're going to make everything available for sale. We'll start with books. And they had very logical reasons why. But then they just kept doubling down. Oh, now we're going to be into jewelry, and now we're into car parts, and I don't even know what now. If I want to buy something, where do I go? And so it's a fascinating thing where they're saying, we promise that we'll have everything here. And then they found some keys with shipping and stuff, but everything, that's still the thing they pursue more than anything else, is we have everything you need.
Everything. Yeah. And I would argue it's everything. It's easy access to everything. Yeah. I would say their brand promise is, if you want it, we get it to you easily. One click, right? Single click. Yeah. I suspect if they said, you know what, we're going to give up on the easy part. We're going to carry everything. We're just going to have the best price. It'll just be the cheapest, but maybe a little difficult to get it, and it may be kludgy, and it may come through third parties. And when you get it, you may not be able to do a return. And and maybe it's not one click, maybe you have to verify your credit card every single time because they're all different purchasers, but it's going to be always the cheapest. I wonder if Amazon will even survive. I wonder if that'd be a devastating decision. They know it's about making it extremely easy to get that one thing you want, that everything.
Yeah.
And the ease of purchase. If you check out their website, they're one of the most highly tested websites in the world all around purchase efficiency. I actually observed the test going on because Amazon's an important platform as an author. Watch their selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are doing heuristics as you're looking at an individual book. If you're looking to buy, your book just came out. If you need a budget, I'm looking to buy it. If I go in there to a Kindle version, if I go into and look at an Audible version, it won't even show the hardcover book as an available option, not readily. I have to dig for it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll only show the most likely alternative to an Audible, which is a Kindle version. So when I went to buy your book, I saw an Audible and said, "Oh, maybe I'll go Kindle." And I'm like, you know what? There's not even he doesn't even have a hardcover. I'm surprised until I then looked at the Kindle and then it says, as an alternative, you may want the hardcover. So they're walking me through a funnel of very easy 1-2 decisions, even when it comes to buying a book.
Yeah, nothing's accidental. Nothing is accidental around that.
Nothing.
Yeah, which is creepy.
And we shouldn't have anything accidental either.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's extremely purposeful. Our YNAB's purpose is to help people gain total control of their money. Full stop. That's the end. And so when we're butting up against all sorts of phenomenal suggestions and opportunities, we just are always kind of saying, well, will that further our purpose? And it's so much easier than say, no, I don't think it will. And we just keep going. And then we do have our uniques, these three things we do that really help us deliver on that purpose. And we always are kind of further filtering down. We'll help one of these uniques. So that lens lets you jettison a lot. But I feel like as a business owner, if you're just kind of going, and hey, there's an opportunity, here's a new shiny, pretty soon, you're just running. And you have a bit, and I think I might be mistaken because I haven't read your book, The Pumpkin Plan. I know that was one of your earlier books, but I think you work on that in that book as well, and perhaps more than here. But when you talk in step 6 about knowing who you're serving, I was speaking with a young guy yesterday at the gym. He's just this super buff kid, but he's a killer designer, designs killer logos. And I said, hey, how's it going with your business? He might be 24 or something. He's freelancing. And he said, yeah, I don't know. I might get a job. And I said, why? He says, well, I charge $400 for a logo, and sometimes it takes me 4 days. And a lot of the times my clients, they're asking me to change this, change that, change this. And I'm sitting here hearing this. I'm saying, okay, he's hiring a client that thinks the logo is worth $400. And then suddenly I'm thinking, and that means that's kind of the worst client to work for, Right. And so I couldn't help but think about when you know your customer, when you identify attributes of your customer that are, I just told them, hey, if you land one client that's $1,200 for the logo, or $1,600 or $2,000, you will notice a difference in how they behave. And try that and see what happens. So I don't know if that's what you mean by know who you're serving or what kind of market you're going for, but I just reminded of him. He's going so hard, and he's just, he's serving the wrong customer, essentially.
Yeah. So I do talk about that in the Pumpkin Plan, and I call it customer cloning. But I dedicate a lot of time to that in Clockwork, and I've gotten a little pushback, but I'm pretty adamant this is the right approach. I say that the customer decision, deciding who the right customer is, comes after you know what your talent is. Most people, the pushback I get, they say, well, figure out the customer and then determine what they want and adjust accordingly. But I do a sports analogy. I say, you know what? Why don't you go play tennis? That's the customer. Figure out how to now serve them and how to get really good at tennis. But if your natural talent is absolute speed in catching a ball, I don't know if that's going to serve you in tennis. Maybe the speed kind of plays in, but it's not about catching, it's about hitting. But if you're super fast and can catch a ball, maybe your sport's football and you should be a wide receiver. We have to first analyze what are the talents, the inherent strengths of a business, and who can they cater to. And, Jesse, you naturally did this. You developed that spreadsheet. That was your initial thing. You're developing a spreadsheet for your own budget. And then all of a sudden, now you say, I wonder if this will serve other people. You developed the talent first and then derived it. In Clockwork, it's really honing in on what's that one thing you're so talented at, and then getting crystal clear on the customer it serves. I'm not saying, by the way, that you first develop it and they will come. what I'm saying is, as an established small business, you're already doing certain things, and we need to further hone in that talent. As we further hone in that talent, some of your existing clients will elevate up. They'll resonate with it. Some of them will go by the wayside, and it'll be very clear on who you need to cater to.
Yeah. So we just talked about the everything store, but what you wouldn't want to necessarily say is, when I say, hey, Mike, who's your audience? And you say, well, gosh, everyone could benefit from the book.
Right.
Like it's such a trap to say like, well, everyone, I mean, I say that to them, well, everyone needs a budget. But at the end of the day, lo and behold, we certainly resonate with a group of people far more than another. And that we can't think we serve everyone, because we'll just be bland and there'll be nothing there for anyone.
And I think a lot of people look at Amazon or Facebook or whatever you name the mega corporation, and we say, but Amazon does everything. Amazon sells every product, or Microsoft, they make video games to software to hardware. They do everything. But the reality is that is the end point. Once they got to $1 billion, I think they're allowed to expand out a little bit.
Although then it's fascinating.
Let's wait until we get.
What happens is you'll see these massive conglomerates, because the conglomerate was the thing back in the day, and then suddenly you have them all jettisoning. Look at GE. They're like, oh, we're getting rid of this.
Right.
So there's the focus that's can be lost even at that high level. It perhaps takes longer to.
It's true.
But yeah, I don't even know if that's
It's so true. I also encourage people, whatever company you aspire to be like or inspires you, look at their early stages. I did this too. Bezos started off just with books. It was just him. He was the guy packaging the books in his garage. He had to grow that to a lot of revenue before the Be Everything store ever became a true thought. He had to be there. I looked at Procter & Gamble, who sells thousands of products. They started their company by selling only 2 products, candles and soap, and they decided that was too diverse. They dropped the candle line, and when it was just soap, they went with Ivory soap, and they exploded. And you see this repeat over and over again. If we want to achieve growth and efficiency, you have to pick your one thing for your one community, and you kind of got to make an all-in bet on that. Become super efficient around it, and let that community carry you to the broader markets, and then you start expanding. And I'll tell you, if you haven't surpassed the magic number, I'm discovering is $10 million in revenue. If you haven't got past that first $10 million in revenue, don't think of anything else but that one thing for the one niche before you expand into the next thing.
It's so tempting to dilute. I've done that so many times. I'll come up with some other channel of revenue, and then it'll run for a year or two, and you think, that's 3% of all of our revenue. Like, it's not even worth the effort. And then you have duplication of overhead and thought and mental power that goes into it. And you end up just you're kind of expending the same amount of energy for 3-4% of revenue. If you would have just landed one new client, with that effort, it would have made the difference. So
that's so true.
It's tempting. And the other thing is you hit it once, and then you think you're a genius, so you're like, oh, I've clearly mastered all business, so I can just kind of go around and do anything I want.
The old false positive.
You're like, well, no, you got lucky one time, and you maybe worked hard, but there it is. So that's also it's pretty. You got to be careful of that. Mike, where can people go to find out more about you? I mean, you've got a lot going on. I think Clockwork. I mean, do you have a progression for a budding business owner? Like, hey, read this, then this, then this, or what would you have them do?
Yeah, so I'll tell you where to go, and I'll tell you where to start. What I've discovered, I used to say, start off with the Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, the first book I wrote, and I now regret making that suggestion. Now, when I say to someone, when they say, where should I start? I respond with another question. I say, what's your biggest current challenge? And they say, well, I don't have any profit, or, I need more clients, or whatever. I've written a book. If you need more clients, the pumpkin plan is a starting point. If you need more profit, it's profit first. If you need to hire someone that's right for you, I haven't written that book. It's someone else's book, if you need a budget, it's YNAB. So you have to figure out what is your biggest challenge and then seek the answer for that challenge. So I don't have a starting point in regards to selecting a book. I do have 2 points you can start at if you want to further explore what I'm doing. One is my website where all my content is. It's MikeMichalowicz.com. Here's the deal. I have the worst last name ever. It's long, it's Polish, it's ugly. There's a shortcut to get there. My nickname in high school was Mike Motorbike. The greatest irony, by the way, Jesse, is I've never driven a motorcycle, but I was Mike.
Okay. Yeah. Mike Motorbike.
So, but you can go to MikeMotorbike.com, and that will bring you to my website where everything is. And Clockwork specifically, if you want to explore Clockwork, my newest book, if you go to clockwork.life, I have created my most comprehensive to date resource guide for a book. It's all free, but the systems are there to make the process of rolling Clockwork out much easier, and for your colleagues to embrace it too. So clockwork.life is where you can get started with the book.
Okay. I have something else I'm just going to tack onto the end, even though that was a killer ending, but I just came up with it just now. So I'm going to do like a lightning round kind of thing. I've never done this before, but just tell me like one morning, like what's something that's critical to your morning as far as just personal success, whatever, just something that's critical to your morning.
All right. I call it the prayer bowl. Every morning I start with prayer. I am religious agnostic, but I do believe in a greater God. And so every morning I found this thing this is funny. I was in India and they turned me on to these things called singing bowls. This guy demonstrated it and it just resonated with me because this bowl, you rub a stick on it and it starts to hum. And it brought such focus for me. I was like, why doesn't everyone know about this? I got to bring this back to America. And I came back and found out actually everyone does know about it. It's every tchotchke store in the world has it. But nonetheless, every morning I will ride my bike from my house. It's an 8-mile ride up to a lake where we live. I sit on the edge of the lake on a cliff and I hit my singing bowl at usually 6:30 in the morning and pray. And that's been awesome. Life-changing. I'm
glad I asked you that. That's phenomenal.
Do you ever hear these things?
No, I mean, you're like, everyone knows. I'm like, well, except me. I have never heard of that.
Okay. I thought everyone, you got just type in singing bowl in Google or something. It's really fantastic. And I think I'm a tactile person. Yeah. I need to hold or feel something. I really have struggled with prayer or meditation or anything of that. My mind drifts. In church, I remember a Methodist, my upbringing was Methodist, but I remember in church, whenever our pastor was giving a sermon, it was so hard for me to listen. My mind would drift to business. I was actually ashamed. With this bowl, it just gets my mind focused. I can't help but
fascinating. There was a guy that came and talked to us. He said, if you kind of lose yourself in an activity and you kind of ask yourself like, oh, where'd the time go? You probably were in the meditative state that you're seeking. But he said you can do it in lots of, skiing down a hill. He said a lot of times you're just so focused on the thing, there's no room for anything else, and you can find that your mind just kind of it achieves that. What is it? The alpha state, where they're saying that it's not. I'm not getting them flip flop alpha beta, but where you're just saying, oh, my mind's in one spot and one spot only, and not going everywhere. So, and on your bike, I'll bet sometimes just the cycling could potentially be or something.
I love cycling. I love cycling. So, you once you hit a hill, like you can't think. You just got to pedal.
If you think, you'll quit. So you really can't think. Excellent. What's one business book, or not? I don't want to limit it. What's one book that you've read that you just thought, oh, that one belongs in a library for people? That's a good one.
Oh, you know what the book was? It was called The Goal. Yeah. It's written by a guy.
Eli Goldratt.
Have you read that?
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. Unbelievable, right? Someone turned me on to it and said, listen, you got to read this. It's for manufacturers. I'm like, well, that sounds boring. The book is amazing. It's written in parable. I think some of the storyline is a little bit cheesy, but that being said, I got goosebumps as I read it. So maybe it wasn't. And the concepts of TOC or theory of constraints, unbelievably applicable to so many parts of business and life that I've truly embraced that book. I have 3 copies of it. I keep one in my house, one here at the office. Is actually right behind me right now. And one goes with me in my travel bag. And I just kind of hop in, read a story, and start thinking about the business again.
That bit where he's with the Boy Scouts and he kind of gets that.
I love that one.
I love that one. It just suddenly you're like, oh, I get this. It was awesome.
And I think as I was reading that story, that resonated with me too. I was like, I think we all can see ourselves. Either you're the slow guy, some of us are the sprinters, the other ones are the carriers. I think one of those Boy Scout characters represents us. And then I saw that. I said, oh, okay. I see now where I fall on this line. I shouldn't be where I think I should be. I need to be in a different spot. And that is,
and you mentioned, I mean, in your book, in Clockwork, you mentioned you kind of go after the weakest link in the chain, which is that idea. It's just, you don't go after everything because you'll hit nothing. So excellent. Well, Mike, it's been a ton of fun. I'll have to have you on again because you seem to write books fairly regularly. So we can at least have you on.
I'll hit you up again.
But thanks for taking the time and sharing your work with with YNABers. I hope people get a lot out of it. Again, thanks for Profit First. That was awesome for me as a business owner, and I hope anyone that's listening that hasn't found it yet, which would be really rare if you're in the business YNAB realm to not have heard of Profit First already, but definitely check it out. It's awesome. And then Clockwork. This for me is a great reminder of especially that the 4 Ds: doer, decider, delegator, and then designing, and what that really looks like. So it's killer stuff. Thanks, Mike. Have a great rest of your week, and good luck in all you're doing, man. You stay busy, but you're killing it.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Mike for letting me have him on and pick his brain about his new book. Until next time, follow YNAB's 4 rules, and you will win financially. You've never budgeted like this.